Well, call me crazy, but Leatherface was a breath of fresh air. Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So, as you know, I've been making my way through the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and today I'm talking about Leatherface. This is the prequel story to the origin, obviously, of Leatherface. Came out in 2017. This was a first-time watch for me, and going in, I didn't really have much expectations. I was just hoping for at least an average-type horror film. And I have to say, much like Texas Chainsaw: The Beginning, this was a bit of a pleasant surprise. I actually ended up enjoying this and having a pretty good time with it overall. So the movie kicks off in Texas, obviously, in 1955, and we open up and see the Sawyer family, and we see Jedediah Sawyer, soon to be Leatherface, as a young child, and his mom, Verna, trying to get him to kill some guy that they've taken hostage, only he is unable to do so. Not long after this, we get a scene where he lures this girl into a barn, and him and his other brothers end up killing her. Turns out that she is the daughter to Sheriff Hartman, played by Stephen Dorff. Sheriff Hartman ends up taking Jedediah away from custody of the Sawyers, and he gets put into basically like a juvenile detention, youth reform type location, and he is there for 10 years, and so the film then jumps ahead to 10 years later. And this brings me to my first positive with the film, is that I really enjoyed some of the new locations, and I liked that the movie just kind of moves around and gives you some different scenery. And here's the thing, I think for the most part, this was just kind of a nice change of pace. Leatherface just gives us something different, and I can totally understand the criticism that I'm sure many people have in that this isn't really a Texas Chainsaw movie, at least for 80% of it, and I would totally agree. It's not really set up like any of the other Texas Chainsaw movies, and you don't get Leatherface until really about the last 15 minutes or so. So I totally get it, but that's kind of why I liked it. This is the 8th film now in the franchise, and I just really appreciated the filmmakers doing something different and just giving us a totally different type of story. I'm just glad that it doesn't feel like the same old, same old. It's just a nice change of pace and a nice change of scenery. So I like how the film opens up, for the most part, in this mental institution, and it just kind of gives you a different type of vibe to the movie. Get introduced to some of the main characters, and the characters here I think are decent. They're serviceable enough. There's some characters that you at least take a liking to. There's other characters that obviously you don't. But I think the characters are written well enough that they serve a purpose within the movie. They're not great characters, but there are some likable characters that you can at least care about a little bit, and then other characters that you really hate, which also kind of gets you emotionally invested in the film. I do have one complaint, though, regarding the characters, and that's really the character of Sheriff Hartman, played by Stephen Dorff. His performance is fine, but it's really just one note. You know, he's just out for vengeance, and that's it. And so, you know, he's not really given much to work with, so I don't really blame his performance at all or anything, but I think it's just the way his character was written. He's just out for revenge, and he wants to kill these kids who have escaped, and that's really it. He's going to take the law into his own hands. He's going to, you know, take justice into his own hands and do this by any means necessary. So it's all just a very one-note, really kind of cliche type, corrupt sheriff type character that we have seen many, many times before. Not only do we get a nice change of pace with the scenery and just a variety of different settings and locations, but we also get a nice variety of kills in this, as, again, Leatherface doesn't really show up till the end, and so, you know, there's really only one major chainsaw, actually two, technically, major chainsaw kills, and so you just get a nice variety of a bunch of different types of kills. We get one guy who gets his head smashed through a pane of glass, we get people shot in the head, one dude gets eaten by pigs, poor Ike gets freaking curb stomped. I mean, that was a gnarly kill. And then we also get this cool like shootout scene / robbery in the diner, which I thought was a really cool scene and actually kind of reminded me a little bit of Pulp Fiction with the Honey Bunny and whatever Tim Roth's character's name is. I can't remember offhand, but yeah, there's just some good stuff here. And I really like the way that the directors handle the violence. There's some gnarly gore, just some really top-notch kills in here. Again, I just like the variety of them. Now, speaking of the directors, Andre Bustillo and Julian Maury, I think is how you pronounce their name. They're French directors. They directed a film called Inside, which is a film I've actually reviewed on my channel, which is one of the more intense horror movies I've seen. But they are a part of the French extremism movement, and so they bring a little bit of that flavor into Leatherface, and I just thought it worked. I just liked seeing some different stuff, some varieties of kills, and I just liked the flavor and some of the style that they brought to the movie. So what ends up happening is our main 5 characters break out of the Gorman Youth Reform Home. And there's this breakout scene that I thought was a pretty cool scene, one of the highlights. I just liked how that whole sequence was shot and filmed, just some cool lighting stuff, and just kind of a cool scene. The 5 of them escape, they're on the run, and they're headed for Mexico. And of course, Sheriff Hartman finds out about it, and he is on their tail trying to track them down. Now, the thing about Leatherface is there is a bit of a mystery element to it, because really the whole film leads up to the reveal of who Leatherface is. And while it's pretty predictable, it's not really that surprising. I feel like the filmmakers, they missed what I think could have been a cool opportunity. And so we don't know who Leatherface is up until the end of the movie. And there's a very obvious red herring. The clear implication is that it's the character Bud, who's this big beast of a kid. He barely talks. He's, mentally challenged. And that's just kind of the obvious pick. Oh, well, clearly he's going to be Leatherface. Only, of course, it's not. Now, while I thought that was a pretty obvious red herring, I feel like due to the fact that this movie does not really feel like a Texas Chainsaw movie, I feel like they really could have worked that into the reveal later on. If they would have given this a title of something different, not Leatherface or not Texas Chainsaw, but a different title, and then have the reveal be that, oh, this is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, and this is the origin story of Leatherface, I feel like that could have been pretty cool. And so I don't know if it would have totally worked, but I just feel like that would have been a cool opportunity for this to be a movie that, again, feels totally different than the typical Texas Chainsaw movies, but then you find out in the end it takes place in that world, and this is Leatherface origin story. I feel like that could have been pretty cool. Now, the main 5 characters, they eventually find this RV out in the middle of the woods that they camp out in and hide out in. And I like what the film does with these 5 characters for the most part. As I said, the characters aren't great, but they service the film pretty good, as there's just this kind of constant conflict and tension between the 2 of them. You've got Clarice and Ike, which are the 2 crazy psychopath murderers. Then you've got Bud, you've got the nurse Lizzie, who has been taken hostage, and then you've got Jackson, who's another one of the kids that was in the Gorman Youth Reform Home. But he is the one who seems to be good. He's got a good heart. He's watching out and trying to protect Lizzie. And I like what they do with the character of Lizzie, because there is this kind of conflict, this inner conflict that she's facing where, she obviously wants to try to escape and get to safety, but at the same time, she's conflicted because she's actually developed a bit of a friendship with Jackson, and she cares about him. And so there's this conflict. She wants to get to safety, but she also wants to make sure Jackson is safe as well. She doesn't want to leave him alone. Now, one of the things the movie does that actually surprised me a little bit was that the characters of Ike and Clarice are actually killed way earlier than I thought they would be. You get just that gnarly curb stomp scene where Bud smashes Ike's face and head against a rock, and then Clarice ends up getting shot in the head by Sheriff Hartman. So that kind of definitely shook things up a little bit. I kind of expected them to make it to the end and be sort of some of the main, antagonist till the end of the movie, but they weren't. Not long after this, Liz sees a cop driving across a bridge. She yells out to try to get rescued, and Jackson feels utterly betrayed. And there's this fight between Bud and Jackson and the police officer, and Bud ends up getting shot. And so that's, kind of the big reveal. Oh, the guy we thought is supposed to be Leatherface isn't Leatherface, only you can kind of see that coming. So, of course, Jackson is Leatherface, and we get just this cool, gnarly, gory scene where he gets shot through the face, and they end up capturing Liz and Sheriff Hartman and bringing them back to the Sawyer house. We get another just insane, gnarly kill of Sheriff Hartman when Leatherface just finally pulls the trigger on the chainsaw and just demolishes this guy, cuts him wide open, cuts his hands off. I mean, it's just a brutal, gnarly kill. And so, look, man, if you're just coming to this movie for some gory goodness, I can't imagine you're not going to at least enjoy it to some degree. I really like the kills in this movie. I thought it was pretty top notch. Then we get the last few minutes where Liz ends up making an escape, and of course, Jackson tracks her down in the woods. And I didn't really love the ending here. I felt like it kind of felt rushed. It kind of felt a little anticlimactic. And the way he decapitates Liz, I don't know, it just looked kind of lame. And it just didn't really look very good. For a movie that has some really top-notch kills, as I just mentioned, I thought this kill of Liz, it was just kind of disappointing, unfortunately. So, I don't know. I really just wish they would have handled the ending with the character of Liz a little bit different. I don't really know what else they could have done or should have done, but I don't know. It just kind of felt rushed and a bit anticlimactic. And so it did leave me with a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. But like I said, overall, I actually had a pretty good time with this. And again, I think one of the main reasons why is because it doesn't really feel too much like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. It's just kind of a nice change of pace. And this isn't even really a slasher movie either. So it kind of sets itself apart. And it gave me something different, which to me, 8 movies deep, I'm here for it. Do something different, and this movie did it. And so, yeah, overall, had a pretty good time with it. I'm going to give it like, I don't know, 6.5 out of 10. It's enjoyable. It's got some gnarly kills. And yeah, there's just some fun stuff in it. I like the change of pace. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Hit me up down below. I'm guessing I'm going to be definitely more on the positive on this side than the majority of people, but I don't know. We'll see. Hit me up down below. Let me know your thoughts on Leatherface. Would love to hear from you. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Up next, obviously, is the last one, the latest Texas Chainsaw from, I think, 2022. This is also going to be a first-time watch for me. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.